And we'll give people time. Oh, we've got participants. Hi, everybody. We'll give people a few minutes to join before we kick off. Just triple checking you can still see my slide, right? Rebecca, Teresa, okay.
Good on our side.
Good. Okay, we've got 33 attendees, and I don't see it climbing just at the moment. Oh, and then, of course, when I said that, it did. Apologies in advance for any coughing. It's back to school season. That means my voice is going to sound like this for a while. Okay, since we're running a couple minutes behind, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, especially our panelists. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for what I know is going to be a really incredibly valuable conversation around running internal comms with a lean team, or maybe even if you're a one-man band. My name is Kara Heimbaugh. I'm the content marketing leader here at Happeo. I just want to, again, welcome everybody. A little bit of housekeeping. This webinar will be recorded, so you'll have access to that after the fact. And I just wanted to make it known that this is recorded today. All right, jumping right in. I know many of you are here today because you've experienced it firsthand, the unique challenge of being a small but mighty or even one-person internal comms team. You're trying to cut through the noise, manage high expectations, and especially prove value, all while feeling stretched thin. So if that sounds like you, you're definitely in the right place, and this webinar is for you. We've gathered an awesome panel of experts here who live and breathe this every day. They're going to share what they see as challenges and also practical strategies and their hard-won wisdom to help you function as best you can as a small team and help be a force multiplier for your internal comms function across the org. So let's meet our panelists today. You've already met me. We've got another Happeo member here, Teresa Passeretti, and then we've got two of our awesome, amazing Happeo customers. We've got Rebecca Hogan from the Weather Company and Casey Bolduc from Ace Solar. I'm going to give them each a chance to tell them a little bit about themselves, and we'll just go left to right, starting with Rebecca.
Thanks, Kara, and happy to be here. My name is Rebecca Hogan, and I lead communications for the Weather Company. So that's both internal and external, as well as events and content. So we are about a 1.25. We have about 1.25 team people on our team, where I have one dedicated person, and then I spend part of my time there. Many of you probably know the Weather Channel, so the app on your phone or weather.com, but the Weather Company also is a B2B weather data and insights provider to, if you think about it, every industry is touched by weather. So chances are the last flight you flew on was using our weather to help you get where you needed to go with as few bumps as possible. Live in Atlanta, Georgia. And, while I love my job, my favorite job is being the mom to two kiddos. So thanks again for having me here, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Thanks, Rebecca. Casey?
Yeah, thank you for having me as well. Casey Bolduc, the Director of Marketing, Communications, Technology, and a handful of other things at Ace Solar. My work history was in journalism, financial industry, working in marketing and communications, as well as a handful of other jobs on my own, which led me to this role at Ace Solar. Great opportunity with, again, wearing a lot of different hats, literally and figuratively, but kind of the nature of this this webinar that we're having here right now. So, a New England, New Hampshire resident, I should say, proud New England sports fan, go Pats, and yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks, Casey. Teresa?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again, Kara, for putting this together. Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa. I'm one of the account managers here at Happeo. I live in Virginia. I'm in the mountains of Virginia. Oftentimes people think of the coast, but I live in the mountains with my husband, my 2 teenage daughters, and recently my favorite member of the family. I have a little 5-month-old puppy. So things are really kind of wild around here, but it's fun. I've spent my career in sales actually and customer management. I've run the gambit, I'd say, in industry. So I started out in management consulting. I've done leadership training, like teaching people how to communicate with their teams, all the way down to advertising and website builds, and then ultimately talent management. And here I am. I've kind of circled all the way back to internal comms, and I love it. It's really where I belong. And so while I don't directly work in internal comms today, I do partner with nearly 80 customers, Happeo customers. And I think that really gives me a unique view into the challenges that they're facing and the trends that are shaping the space. And so that's what I'm really excited to bring that perspective to today's discussion.
Fabulous. Thanks, Teresa. And now that we're all comfortable with each other, let's jump in. We're going to start with a game. I'm sure maybe not. A lot of people have heard of the put a finger down trend. It's all over the TikTok and Instagram. So we thought we would do this to see just how relatable some of these pain points are for everybody. So you don't have to turn your cameras on or make it a big thing, but if everyone wants to put all of their fingers up for everything that you can relate to, then you put a finger down, obviously showing the fewer the fingers you have left at the end of this, maybe the more pain points you're experiencing when you're running with a lean team in internal comms. So let's get started. Put a finger down if getting consistent leadership or stakeholder engagement is like herding cats and pulling teeth. Put a finger down if you've ever had a message sent to the entire company that was meant for just one team. Put a finger down if you have a single source of truth that is regularly out of date. Put a finger down if you've been asked to make it more engaging without any additional budget or resources. Put a finger down if you've experienced a really, really bad reply all story. Put a finger down if you've ever been brought in at the 11th hour to a highly strategic initiative to help with almost zero context. Put a finger down if you've ever felt like your skill set is overlooked or undervalued in the organization. Put a finger down if you've ever felt like your job is 50% comm strategist and 50% detective. Put a finger down if you've ever created a comms calendar only to have it completely derailed by urgent requests. Put a finger down if you've ever tried to convince a leader that just sending an email is not, in fact, a strategy. So very curious. I'm guessing we probably have a lot of zeros out there. I'm not sure, but I figured there would be very low numbers at the end of this because they all sound very, very familiar, things we hear from our customers, and Rebecca and Casey can speak to these as well. So moving on, the main pillars we're going to explore today are obviously the top challenges in running internal comms with a lean team. We're going to get insights, strategies, and tips from our experts. And one key part of this is like how we can show value across the organization. And then we'll end with Teresa walking us through the Happeo platform and ways that Happeo does indeed help small teams become a force multiplier. But before we jump into the panel questions that we have, let's take a little look at sort of the state of the union for both internal comms leaders and then also for the employees that they serve. So let's look at what the data is showing us. This is all coming from the Reagan State of Internal Comms report, and it's really showing us that leaders are a few different things. Number one, stretched thin, 73% saying they have less than 5 people on the team, and 12% having no dedicated individual at all for internal comms. So that's where you get the Caseys of the world who are wearing all those multiple hats, or internal comms is being heaped onto someone who's maybe it's not their core role or their first role, or they're sitting in a dual role. Internal comms leaders are saying they're under-resourced, with over half of organizations having no fixed internal budget. So constantly being scrappy, trying to be agile, trying to do more with less all the time. And they're also struggling with low visibility, with 70% saying that they struggle to demonstrate the impact of internal comms. So they're having a hard time staying visible and valuable across the organization, and wanting to make sure that everyone is recognizing the value that the internal comms function provides. for the employees that they're serving, it's unfortunately difficult for internal comms leaders to give those employees what they need and the organization what it needs. And what employees are needing, number one, is they want clarity, with nearly 80% saying that the quality of the comms that they get from leaders and internally really impacts how well they understand organizational goals. And then piggybacking off of that, they want out of the dark. With 72% saying if they do understand those organizational goals, it really impacts how engaged they are at work, leading to better productivity or worse productivity. And finally, something that I think we can all relate to is that employees are on the go more than ever, with 80% of orgs operating with either hybrid, a flexible, or remote work model. So that just adds another interesting complexity to internal comms when you no longer have people sitting 3 cubicles away. They're across different time zones, geographies. They're in the field. They're on the go. And so that makes internal comms even more important. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing slides, and we're just going to have a semi-informal discussion. And we're going to start with challenges. So we'll do this round robin. So let's start, Rebecca, with you, ladies first. What do you see as the top challenges in internal comms right now, specifically for lean teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's largely, I mean, speaking from my experience that I'm, currently in, it's getting people's attention. Employees I recently was joking with a colleague that that people may think that the hardest audience for me and my team to engage are members of the media, but it's actually employees, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. Employees are under a lot of pressure. There's so much change happening right now in their organizations, in the world, whether it's socio-political events that are unsettling, or what's happening with the rise of AI. And so their attention is all over the place. And so I would say that is the biggest challenge, is how do you make sure that the comms that you're putting together, the messages that you're writing, that are all in support of the business and the business's strategic priorities and growing the business, meeting those objectives, are actually getting read or listened to or watched by your employee base. And so making sure it's all about, the right message at the right time through the right channel. And, obviously Happeo is a big part of that strategy for us, but I would definitely say attention from your employees.
Good point. Casey, what do you have to say about challenges that you're seeing right now in internal comms, especially for lean?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, so for me personally, I mean, this coming from a financial industry, very regimented corporate strategy, we'll say, for communications, to the construction industry, which is, I'll say, by comparison, very much informal. Not a lot of structure there. So, I mean, for me, it was not just building some structure, but I think we touched on it too with employees on the go and a couple of the other stats there. It's kind of dialing in on the audience and kind of being in their shoes, I'd say. For example, half of, well, more than half, 3/4 of our employees are out in the field, right? So the sort of type of messaging that we might hear communicate to one another in the office is, much different from what's in the field. So I'd say a big challenge is, um, you know, I don't want to say meeting in the middle, because each needs their own attention for sure. So I don't want to say personalization isn't quite where it's at either, but I'd say, like, identifying and meeting audiences where they're at, I'll say. It's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a lot of people in the field and construction, I'm sure. Back, Rebecca, to what you said quickly. You talked about getting attention, and one of the put a finger down statements was, feeling as though your role is maybe undervalued, or maybe internal comms is seen as a distraction. How can internal comms managers help the organization see internal comms as a strategic partner versus just either a service desk or a distraction?
Totally. And I have definitely worked in organizations where internal comms was seen as a distraction, as opposed to an enabler of the business, which all of us know, whether we're a small team or a large team, that it is in fact an enabler of the business. I really think it's about, it's setting out, once your company sets your strategic objectives and priorities for the coming year, and building your internal comms strategy, to ladder up to that, so you can show directly that this initiative, this internal comms campaign, this channel, I mean, you can get as, and I'm speaking in Happeo lingo, but that from a channel perspective, but we can think about channels, whether it's Slack or email or your internet or video, or I mean, even your screens in your office. I mean, we still have those too, for those of us who are working in one of our offices. But it's showing how each one of those tactics ultimately pay off the strategy of the company. And then it's also really, especially for lean teams, is making sure that you're identifying those communications advocates and champions within the organization, especially in leadership, or kind of the layer under leadership, who can be a voice for you to help you make the case for whether it's budget or an additional person, or just getting the leaders time in order for them to invest in your internal comms initiatives. Because we all know that, and the company can't just hear from us, they have to hear from other people across the organization. And so building that kind of community of communicators and IC champions who aren't necessarily in the IC function, I think that those are all important components for your organization to see internal comms as a strategic part of the business and not an order taker, not a, hey, make my slide look pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. And Teresa, I know one thing you're really passionate about when you help our customers is helping them build those champions, helping them be seen as a strategic partner, and getting leadership to use the platform or use internal comms channels to really communicate across the org. Do you have thoughts to add to this in terms of how you can become a strategic partner?
Yeah, well, I think part of the challenge is that oftentimes they put someone in charge of comms who's green to their career, right? And so they instantly become order takers because they don't know how to get a seat at the table. And ultimately, like going back to what Rebecca and Casey were talking about, like you are competing with the world stage and all the content that everybody's taken in day after day. So how do you make your content less fluffy and really important to business outcomes? Well, the only way to do that is to be really close to the business. And so, you've got to consistently show value, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, part of it is finding your champions and getting them to help you plug in, and getting them to share your message. And the other part of it is just getting close to the business, knowing it really well, and building out a strategy.
Yeah. And I'm gonna tweak this question just a little bit for Casey. With wearing so many hats like you do at A Solar, how do you, like, I think, let me back up. Part of being a strategic partner is being able to have a seat at the table, getting leadership buy-in, and really steering away from being reactive and being proactive. So how would you say you do that, or how would you advise folks in the lean team?
Yeah, no, that's a good point to make too. I mean, I think having a strategy at the jump, and Rebecca mentioned kind of starting the year with aligning it to company goals and initiatives, right? And that's kind of a baseline. So I think part of how I tackle things is just having that baseline sort of set in the background, right? So whatever that content calendar is, whatever it once a month, once a quarter, or something along those lines, and then kind of, I'd say, mixing in the valuable pieces of communication in between, right? Wearing that many hats, you could probably imagine there's a lot of me talking and me communicating. So switch from one channel, to use a Happeo phrase, one channel to the next, right? It's me again. So part of overcoming that challenge, right? Educating those around you, the fellow managers, fellow leaders, peripheral to you, in order to showcase, like, hey, here's what I've been saying, right? Here's this message. I think it's a great message, but I also think everybody's been listening to me a lot, so they might be toning it out, right? It resonates a lot more coming from those direct sources and where it means more. Um, I like to use this I'd say case study, but generated my own case study, we'll say, within the company. So early on in using Happeo, some great analytics available, and was getting the question from leadership about how much engagement we're getting, and I'm showing the data and it's great. We had a good baseline going, but I'll say there's a little hesitancy to jump in and be the ones talking from leadership there. Yeah, I think more to the style of communication within a construction company, right? There's a lot of less is more as the attitude. So one all hands meeting, we had everybody in the room except for one of those partners. So I took the opportunity to have literally everybody sitting there tag him with a comment or some kind of phrase, or just tagging him within Happeo. So within 5 minutes, I got a phone call. I don't want to say it was complaining, but hey, why do I have so many notifications? And I said, well, everybody, they're engaged. They want to hear you talk, right? He had posted something later that day, and then the trickle down in analytics, I should say the spike and then relative trickle from the analytics was enough of a proof point to say, oh, wow, I didn't really even say anything. Like if that's, the effect that communicating from that high level can have, this could go a long way. So make your own proof points.
And
Yeah.
Kara, if you wouldn't mind if I jump back in on this question,
Go
but Teresa said something that made me think too of, I talked about how in previous roles I've definitely had that like internal comms as a distraction. And in my current role at the weather company, leadership sees the value of internal comms like greatly. And that also brings its own level of challenges, right? Especially when you do have a lean team. And so they truly believe in it. Obviously, it puts you in a little bit of a pressure cooker. But to Teresa's point, like about having a seat at the table is, don't wait to be invited to the table. Like kind of, I hate to say the word push, but like push your way there. Obviously with the backup of why you need to have a seat at the table and all the reasons why internal comms needs to be brought in early as that strategy is being built, or as the merger or the acquisition is in the early stages. So find your voice and don't be scared to use it.
Yeah, definitely have to beat your drum a little bit. Teresa, do you have any final thoughts on that?
If you're going to push your way through, build the strategy first.
Yeah, and that kind of really nicely leads to sort of the next topic that I wanted to talk about is like get to the table, but then what do you do when you get there, and how can we show value? And there's a lot. We already talked about budgets. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't have analytics tools. So assuming that, and Teresa, I'll start with you just because you help our customers look at their analytics every day. When you have no budget or no dedicated analytics team or tool, what are the first 1 to 2 metrics that someone can really focus on to start proving their value?
Oh my gosh, I bet Rebecca and Casey can answer this much better because I have Happeo analytics for my customers. But I will say, don't forget the old school methods. You should always, regardless of whether you have Happeo or not, be measuring your open email rates, be measuring links clicked, be measuring who's opening spreadsheets and different presentation decks that you're sharing or your newsletters. Like, rely on the old school methods. If you have nothing else, don't just not do anything, as I've seen so many people do. But I guarantee you, Rebecca and Casey have a much better answer.
Yeah, Rebecca, I know you like to do something around the organization, and I'm blanking on what you called it, but I'll let you jump in on this.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. Recently I did a listening tour, and I did it specifically with our IT and engineering team. I wanted to get their point of view on how our internal comms were kind of tracking with their teams. And so I just set up like 15 or 20 minutes with a handful of team leaders in our IT and engineering business. Obviously, a super important business to us, as I'm sure it is to many other companies. But with having the amount of data that we process, obviously our forecasting, and then pulling that through into both our consumer and our B2B products. They're a really important group of individuals, and we need to make sure that we're keeping them engaged, especially, amidst all the change that we're going through as like larger world stuff, as well as within our own organization. And so sometimes, again, that old school, just like taking the time and having the conversations, and then looking at kind of that qualitative input with the quantitative data that we get from Happeo, and then realizing like where we might need to judge things and change up our strategy a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure like the combination of hard data and qualitative, it goes back to one of the put your finger down, where it's like you're 50% investigative journalist, basically. You're
Totally.
out there trying to pick the brains.
And through that those conversations, like I heard that there was one leader in particular that people really wanted to hear more from, because this leader was newer to our company, but the touch points that they did have with this person, they got so much value out of it. And they knew that this person is like great for our culture. And so that enabled us to think differently about how we use this leader in our internal comms. And we're setting up more of a continuous kind of campaign or comms touch points with him, so people can hear from him more. Not only will help them within their day-to-day, but will also be kind of a culture driver for the business.
Yeah.
One other thing I just wanted to mention that I remembered is there's customers are doing surveys. You're doing surveys throughout the business all the time. And one thing I've noticed is the communications teams forget to have their piece in that survey. And so then when they come around and they want to collect information, they're like, oh, well, we can't do a survey because everybody's surveyed out. And it's like, well, did you have any questions of your own in the organization survey? And it's like, no. That's also just another like little ways that you can push yourself in.
Mhm. For sure.
Casey.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, I had a couple of thoughts there. The data aspect of it, I mean, I just remember early on in my marketing experience, just kind of going, this is a sort of magic science that's going on here, or it's not even really a science, right? We have a theory, we throw it out there, we see what works, right? And as I've gone along in my professional career, become much more of a data nerd. So pretty much everything is a data-driven decision, right? Like there has to be some sort of data justification to approaching something a certain way, right? That's so I would say part of my lean into the conversation, or really like push my way into those conversations, is leading with that. Well, did you know? Fun fact, right? And throwing statistics, like 80% of our companies on the go. Like, so being able to email on a regular basis is not something that, is very conducive from the field while you're thumbing it out on your phone, right? So, kind of working through some of those things and bringing the data into it, which is, again, in my mind, takes marketing from a pseudoscience into like the real world, right? It's like, no, there's some hard numbers behind this, and we can show lift, we can show improvement based on that, right? Like in my own little use case, right? We had that sort of baseline for a couple months, but just to show that spike and have that literal mountain there as far as data, I mean, that it goes a long way to kind of proving that point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it builds out a story, and the more you understand the internal business and the way things are running, the more you can optimize and improve over time. So that's a great point. I'm gonna shift topics now. Rebecca, I'll start with you because you used a phrase earlier, pressure cooker, when you're a small team. And that comes with a lot of pressure for last minute requests, for things, crises or major announcements. It feels like it's all on your shoulders. So how would you advise someone with a lean team or a team of one to navigate, let's say, 11th hour requests?
Yeah, I mean, couple of ways. I mean, one, it is having that strategy. And so you can point to not only your comm strategy, but the higher level business strategy to say, how is this 11th hour request in service of our bigger goals? Obviously there's certain things like if there's, weather related announcements or emergency type announcements, like that's, you just do it. But if it is more somebody wants to provide an update on their project or their business and they feel like everybody in the company should hear about it, it's then taking them through all the different ways that you could possibly communicate. So does it have to be right now? Like, let's really think about that. Or can it go in our next newsletter? Or is it a meaty enough update that we have something called showcases that we do every other week where different parts of the business can come in and show updates to our products or talk about, a new addition to our tech platform or whatever it may be. And so actually giving them not an immediate channel and forum to communicate, but providing them the right channel in order to communicate because they have more information than maybe an article on Happeo is gonna do it justice, or is it a combo? And so it's really sitting down and not being the naysayer and saying no right off the bat, but hearing them out and then helping come up with what is the right way to communicate, who are the right people to communicate it to, and what's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and there's like a level of education there. And the more you do that, the more your employees, or like you like to call them, your customers, really start to get the hang of it themselves. So you're kind of building up your own champions when you can take that approach. It reminds me of a quote I've always liked. Queen Elizabeth used to always say, "Does it need to be said, and does it need to be said by me?" And so, yeah, it's very much the same when you're working in internal comms. Casey, what are your thoughts?
And real quick, Kara, because you brought up the whole customers piece, is one of our values is obsess over our customers, and I will use that with our most senior leaders to say, because we all can get it sometimes, is that, communications, not just internal comms, but comms or marketing in general, like brand police, or, that we hold too strong at the gates of communication. But that's what I say. I'm like, when I think about with my internal comms hat on, when I think about our customers, it's our employees. And my job is to make sure that what we're doing is in service of them and not necessarily in service of, the message that needs to go out. Because if they're not going to resonate with that message, then it's just, frankly, a waste of everybody's time. So, so yes, I do think of our employees as our customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Teresa, you have thoughts? Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, I was going to bridge on that. I mean, it's funny because as you were making your quote with Queen Elizabeth, that the Marshall McLuhan quote popped into my head. The medium is the message, right? The idea there. So as Rebecca was talking, I was also thinking through this layer of like those 11th hour requests and what they can be, right? So, I mean, I think a lot of the time, right, more often than not, communications take the form of text, right? Whether it's like an email, a post on a channel, an article, something along those lines. So I've been trying to like poke holes in that a lot lately as well. So, video being one of those big elements, right? You want to talk about boosting engagement, boosting interaction. I mean, that's something that just in the larger social media world is kind of a given. So taking that into here, I kind of had the same thoughts, right? And it's interesting well, I'll say we started floating around that idea, but when it comes to those 11th hour requests, no, certainly video is not going to be something that fits nicely into an 11th hour request just based on how long it would take to put that together, right? So I think education definitely a key element of that, right? I mean, especially as a one-man team, I think a lot of the processing goes on internally, and I forget to sort of communicate the fact that like, no, we can't do that because of XYZ or time constraints or something along those lines, right? So I think taking that time, not in the 11th hour, but hopefully before the 11th hour to, kind of reiterate to everybody, like, here's some kind of general expectations of what could happen, right? Also maybe a nudge or a reminder that, like, those last minute 11th hour messages don't necessarily resonate as well as the rest of them. So maybe we call me in the 8th hour or something along those lines, right?
Yeah. I think too, like we said before about having your champions, when you can get to a point where you do build out your champions as a lean team,
Yeah.
then you can have trusted individuals to help delegate,
Correct.
the internal comms function
Yeah.
at large. So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Teresa, any thoughts to jump in on here?
Yeah, so it's hard for a one-person team to manage the comms request of an entire organization. I have some customers that's a one-person team with an employee base of 1,400 people, which is a lot. And so the best that I've seen, because everything you guys are saying are 100% right. Like, not everything is urgent. Of course, we have to have a process for putting the fires out. But my favorite is so simple. It's just, having a request form that lives in your intranet. Hopefully it's a Happeo. And I have one customer who actually has like Asana built into a page where people request immediate right into their project management software. And that just makes it so much easier for one person to keep up with and to prioritize and help people understand what's important. And the other part of that I really like that you touch on, Rebecca, is, how does this fit into our larger goals? And you can have that in your form. And I really like that idea because it shows people that, hey, my comms team thinks really strategically and they're not just going to communicate to communicate.
Yep. Yeah. And I love that Asana integration because it's like less cracks, less things fall through them, right? So yeah, all good points. Thanks everyone. And we're gonna end on a question that may end up being more than one question, but when you think of being a small team or a team of one, and you try to think of tools or ways that you can, increase your efficiency or be a force multiplier, of course, AI is going to come up in the conversation. We've been hearing AI constantly, and some may use it in their day-to-day in a number of different ways, and some might be a little hesitant or worried to implement it, and what the implications of that might be and what the ripple effects might be across the org. So Casey, I'll start with you this time. Let's talk AI. What are your thoughts? Are you using it? What do you think?
Yes. Slam my fist down.
Yes, I am. Okay. Moving on now.
No. Yeah, exactly. Next. No. No, I mean, it's a huge topic. Obviously, at first, a lot of buzzwords and people kind of using the term and maybe not completely understanding what's what, right? But I think, all right, so for me personally, 100%, I cannot imagine a world where I wouldn't be using it at this point, and I don't know, it makes me question how I was getting by and doing anything prior to it, to be perfectly honest, right? There's I'd say the conspiracy theorist in me, or the, negative Nancy, if you will, wants to say like, no, you should be doing that thinking on your own, right? But it's not. I think you touched on it quite well there, Kara. It's a multiplier of what you can do, right? It's utilizing that time. Anytime you think like, oh, I'd love to draft that up, but I just don't have the couple minutes to do so. And that's sort of like that linchpin to the rest of, producing the rest of that campaign, we'll say, something along those lines, right? Can be a huge, I'll say, motivator, or help to move things along for yourself. But I also have this heavy cautionary approach to it as well. It's got to be used mindfully. I think in a lot of cases, there's certainly horror stories out there for sure. And I think a lot of times in those horror stories, I go, well, what was the goal in the beginning, right? So kind of narrowing the focus of things, I'd say, being careful about it. Nothing, my journalist brain goes, please do not copy and paste anything out of there and just throw it out into the world, because that's not going to get you anywhere, right? But using it as that sort of sounding board, I think, is very, 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 very helpful as a one-man team, one-person team, right? Trying to accomplish all these things. So, hey, can you do this little piece of critical thinking while I'm working on this over here? I think is a valuable tool for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to share any specific tools that you use for people to grab a hold of and maybe try out?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, all right. So just one recently. So, working on a postcard mailing campaign, which was something that took some time in gathering the audience and who I was going to be sending those to, confirming addresses and things. And this particular audience set was by way of lists that were available from different town websites. So it took a little bit of bouncing around, gathering all of those spreadsheets, and then taking all of those spreadsheets and combining it into one spreadsheet, and then formatting it, all caps. Make sure you get the zip codes right. We're in New England, so pretty much everything starts with a 0. Don't forget your leading 0, right? Let's keep that in there. So yeah, I think for that, primarily, like, I won't say the grunt work, but taking out some of the, what would be a drag in
The
getting
tedium,
into the,
yeah,
right?
so that you can be more strategic and do it
100%.
quicker. I've definitely done campaigns like that, and I know how time consuming they can be when you're doing it manually. So,
Right.
Rebecca, what are your thoughts on AI, and what tools are you leveraging in your?
Yeah. So just like Casey, yes, pounding my fist. We definitely embrace it. And I mean, it's not without, and I'm still working through like these feelings of am I cheating? Like, am I gonna lose my ability to write?
That doesn't go
Which I
away
would
either.
hate to do, right?
Yeah, right.
But then I had to change my mindset because we are a lean team and we don't have the ability to hire somebody else on the team, like a more like entry level or entry to mid level team member. That's how I've kind of had to frame what AI is to our team. And so just like with somebody who is newer in their career and you have to provide a lot of guidance and a lot of input and then feedback and go through several iterations, that's kind of how I treat LLMs and AI. So we do use it a lot. What I use, we have Gemini. We're a Google suite company, so you definitely use Gemini right in documents and in folders. But we also have a playground, a little sandbox that our AI and tech teams have created. Both of those are behind security walls, so we can be very specific and put in even proprietary information. The sandbox one pulls from, we can choose different agents. And one really cool way that I've started using Gemini within folders is every other week our CEO puts out a communication to the company, and I help him with that and thinking of like different topics that he wants to write about. He's been doing this for the last year, so I want to make sure that we're not repeating any topics. And so let's say like this last week, we talked about resiliency. And so I went into the folder where all of his comms are within Google. And I just said, like, can you pull out in this folder any mentions of the word resiliency, to make sure that what this message was not duplicative, but additive. And so that's just, I mean, nobody wants to look through,
Yeah.
26 comms, just look for the word resiliency, but we'll let Gemini do it.
Yeah, and no one wants to do it, and why do it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Why waste your own time? Why waste time when you could be doing other things? And I think it's true. Like, I think some people struggle with like that AI induced imposter syndrome, but there's no shame in being efficient, right?
No.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as Casey said, it's about like not taking what it spits out at face value and then lending your company's tone and voice and brand into it. But it's a heck of a lot better than staring at a blank screen with a blinking cursor.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
No,
And that accuracy is important too. So yeah, you're the human in the loop.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh man, I lost it. That was a good one. No, that's fine. I just think it's a great tool to have. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, I say a lot of the time, like, jack of many trades, master of a few, right? So if I was a 5 tool player before, to use a sports analogy, this would be a 10 tool, making you a 10 tool player, right? All the fringe things that are part of our roles is like carrying out a campaign, in different ways, right? All the little things that are kind of peripheral to that maybe isn't your main skill set, like that's something where it fills in the gaps. I think of like coding and things along that lines, like automation's huge in my one-man team world as well. So Being able to automate something that's going on through a couple different platforms would take, we'll say a much more knowledgeable level of coder than where I'm at, right? But if I can just go and ask, hey, what's the appropriate code to be using in this scenario, right? I mean, it can generate that as a starting point, helping me, eliminate the 45 minutes that I would have had to take to go re-research something that I kind of know but need to refresh my memory on, right? So I think
Yeah,
in a lot of ways it can be used as that extension of yourself, right?
yeah, totally. Teresa, any final thoughts on AI before we move into kind of your segment of the webinar
Yeah,
today?
I know we're coming up on time, so I'll just say that two things. It's critical if you're a lean team. If you're especially you are doing the work of three people and you are one person, use AI. It is there to help you.
Yep.
Two, you don't have to use AI only for writing. Super helpful. I use it all the time for writing, but all that strategic work that we're talking about, like, go get your company's goals, plug them into ChatGPT and help you build a comm strategy around those goals and use that. Like, you can use it to create your campaigns, your calendars. There's so much that it can do for you and save you time. So
Absolutely.
critical.
Well, listen, we started about 5 minutes late, so I'm going to say we have about 15, 16 minutes left. I'm going to let Teresa hop in and give us a little scenic drive through Happeo for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we've got 6 or 7 minutes. We've got some time for questions at the end. We've got a few already. So just a quick reminder while Teresa gets set up to go ahead and drop your questions if you have any in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. And now take it away, Teresa.
Awesome. Thanks, Kara. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for moderating. I think you're doing a great job.
Well,
And many thanks to all of you for choosing us to hang out and join us today. I know you could be getting some actual work done or scrolling LinkedIn because that's so much fun, or having a snack. But a special shout out to our panelists. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you two during our prep sessions. You guys are some of the best pros in the industry that I've had the pleasure of learning from the last couple days. And of course, on behalf of all Hapsters, we do want to thank you too for choosing Happeo. We're grateful that you chose us to be your internet partner. So some of you on the call today know Happeo inside and out. Others, you're brand new, still figuring out what your internet needs are. Wherever you are in that journey, we're glad you're here. Over the last couple of years, our Hapsters have been working really hard and we've rolled out some really exciting features. So quick intro, welcome to Happeo. We are the next gen intranet and your digital HQ. We do focus on 4 key areas. That's internal comms, a central source of truth, knowledge management, and we have a world-class search. But my personal favorite is that everything we do is powered by AI. We believe it's critical and it's built into the entire platform. We don't see it as this big shiny add-on, but we really see it as more of like a core feature. And it's designed really to supercharge your Google Workspace or your Microsoft 365 environment so that you're not starting from scratch. So kind of goes back to what we were talking about. We really like to help make our customers editors rather than authors, because we already know you're doing a lot. And so we want to make that easy for you. So when it comes to supporting our customers and internal communications, our goal is simple. We want to make it easy, powerful, and engaging. And basically, we want to cut through the noise and actually get people's attention. And so we make it easy to share company-wide news, to celebrate wins, to push out updates, and to spark conversations all in one place. So employees get a familiar social style experience that they actually want to engage with, while you get the control and the targeting that you need. And thanks to a clean, flexible notification center, nobody misses a beat. So people know where to go, they can jump into conversations, and they feel like they're part of what's happening at the organization. So it's really about making communication natural, accessible, and impossible to ignore. At Happeo, we know every company needs a single source of truth. That's why we're here. But we also know that that means different things to different teams. So whether it's a classic intranet content that you need, like HR policies or company wikis, or team hubs that make it easy for departments to share resources, swap updates, or to stay aligned, or perhaps it's a space for new hires where they can go to get up to speed and to connect with experts. Really, the possibilities are endless, but we want to make it easier for you to build what matters most. So at the heart of our platform is one of our strongest differentiators. We have the best pages builder on the market. So we're talking, we have a simple drag and drop editor anyone can use, widget-based pages for total flexibility, plus templates and branding tools so everything looks sharp. And the best part is you don't need to be a designer or an IT expert to make it happen. So this makes it super easy to decentralize content ownership so updates can happen fast, your content stay fresh, and you avoid the nightmare of an outdated intranet, because who wants to build another one? Unless, of course, you have Happeo. So we're giving you the best of both worlds, structure and control without killing speed. You get enterprise level governance and the flexibility of a startup. Another way we support you is by actually helping you prove value, which has been the whole conversation today. We help you engage everyone with Happio's analytics. So with centralized reporting, all your numbers live in one place. There's no more digging through spreadsheets or running manual reports. You can see at a glance what's happening across your entire intranet. We also let you track engagement over time, so you know what content is landing, what's not, and when to double down to build that excitement. And with audience segmentation, you can slice the data by teams or departments to see who's really plugged in and maybe who needs a little extra nudge. User reporting lets you spot your champions, all those really important people Rebecca was talking about, those people who are driving conversations, and we can actually use this to celebrate their impact. And when you've got something really important, we have read receipts that make it easy to confirm that your message actually hit the mark. And so all of this helps you to tell a compelling story to leadership. You're showing them that you're not just sharing content, but you're driving measurable results that tie back to those real business outcomes. And when it comes to knowledge management, employees with the power of AI always have instant access to verified, contextual, real-time knowledge. So the first way we help employees with knowledge is simple. We make it easy to find stuff. Our AI search is built to give people real answers, not just a link of list. It understands context and intent, so you're getting the right information right away, the first time. It even helps people take action. So whether that's updating content, jumping into another tool, or being able to ping a subject matter expert for help. But the beauty of it is search is everywhere. So you can pull results from other tools. You can even search from where they already are, like Slack or Teams or Google Chat. So it's really like a personal assistant for your company knowledge, but it's always on and it's always connected. The second way we help companies is we make sure your collective knowledge is rock solid. Our AI-powered system automatically scans your intranet to spot those knowledge gaps. So whether it's content missing, whether it's outdated, or whether it's just plain wrong, we help you spot that. Then we help you fix it really fast using AI and your existing workspace tools. And then we help you to communicate those updates so people actually know what's changed. And this is how we tackle the classic garbage in, garbage out problem. Your content stays relevant, your employees trust the system, and your AI search is smarter. And this is one of my favorite features. We have content that builds itself. So we've designed AI not for the tech team, but for the communicators and the knowledge managers who are juggling a million things. Our AI assistant can create channel post or page content in seconds, pulling from your Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, using your templates and staying completely on brand. So what this means is that anyone, and I truly mean anyone, subject matter experts, team leads, or even first-time contributors can create great content quickly without having to reinvent the wheel or break the brand rules. We know we don't want people breaking the brand rules. So this is where Happeo shines. We're giving you enterprise level control and branding while keeping the speed and agility of a modern bottoms up platform. And we believe that we've truly found a way to give you the best of both worlds. So in summary, Happeo is the internet reimagined, your digital HQ where communication, knowledge, and people come together. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us today. If you're still here, really appreciate it. I'll hand it back to Kara so we can hear from our panelists and dive into some Q&A.
Can you advance to the next slide for me, since you have the reins here? All right. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for that quick overview of the many, many things Happeo does. Since we've got customers here, I'd love to hear what is your like 1 to 2 features of Happeo you can't live without, or just a quick anecdote of the impact it's made across your org. Casey, why don't you take the lead?
First and foremost, the number of like corny dad puns that this has added to my quiver has been awesome. I'm happy to share as many as possible, but I think I'll just limit it to that. But no, I think it's I think you hit on a lot of it there, but the easy to use part is huge, right? I mean, I know enough about web development to kind of I could build something, sure, but the drag and drop aspects of it, the sort of it's very user friendly, I'd say, from a developer or a creator standpoint, right? So that's been huge. It's easy enough to take something, and we talked earlier about fielding requests and things like that. And the idea of a form is great. I think 9 times out of 10, the requests aren't really coming to me as in the form of requests. They're more of like a challenge that someone else has, and then the solution is communications, right? So being able to take that and then translate it into something real quick, utilizing those tools makes it oodles and oodles easier than a previous world.
Absolutely. What about you, Rebecca?
You come off mute. I would say like the ease. What Teresa was just talking about, especially for a small team. And once you identify those individuals in your company that believe in the power of internal comms and can become additional content creators for you and those SMEs, our dedicated internal comms team member, she was recently out on leave, and so that left me in my like quarter to a half person being able to work on this, and we had the company didn't stop and didn't pause its need for communicating out to our employees. And it was super easy for me to be able to jump in there and make tweaks that I needed to make sure pages were current, as well as, send out communications. We use Happio's channels on a regular basis. We do something called FaceTime Fridays every other Friday, where people just record selfies of themselves. As it's a way for our distributed workforce to really get to know each other and the work that them and their teams are doing. And so like being able to go in there and link the video within our Google Drive and create the header image and all the text, it's just super plug and play. And so for somebody who doesn't have a lot of time, you're able to still have very, very smart and professional looking communications with that then trigger to actually send out the communications, not have to do something separately. That just makes it like really easy from soup to nuts.
Yeah, and going back to one thing Casey said before about how he's trying to, the message is the medium, or the medium is the message, is Happeo makes it a lot quicker and easier to get out of just straight text, right? So that as well. Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for being here. We do have 1 or 2 questions that came through, so feel free to drop, but we're going to answer our questions quickly. The first one was, what's the toughest trade-off you've had to make as a lean team? Because obviously with AI, with delegation, with champions, sometimes you just can't do it all. So thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Rebecca, on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, as communicators, we want we want things to look super polished and always do things like the right way, the best way. And so it is, it's the whole like, don't let perfect get in the way of good. Sometimes things don't need to be perfect. Often they don't. And so it is that scrappy, like, hey, employee or leader, send me a self-recorded selfie video that's, 2 to 3 minutes long and talk about yourself. And sometimes they're on a trade show floor and there's a lot of noise in the background, and we try to like edit out as much of that noise as possible. But otherwise, we just tell people to like turn up the volume when you're listening to this video. What the person has to say is important. So I think that's the biggest trade-off is some things need to be maybe need to be more of that like great level of quality, and some are okay to just be okay. It's an important message you have to get out. And you don't need, everything doesn't need to have like that equal weighting of perfection.
Very true. Casey, your thoughts on that, trade-offs?
And I was gonna jokingly say my hairline, hence all the hats, but I'd say it's kind of along those lines. I mean, I think as all communicators, probably hypercritical of ourselves. I mean, I'm not going to be able to watch the recording of this because I'll just be cringing the entire time, right? That's kind of what we're talking about today. So, like getting, I don't want to say, and it sounds weird coming from that context. It's not getting comfortable with bad, but it's like understanding the shades of gray in between, right? And I think Rebecca touched on it nice. It's like there are messages and certain things that should have that time dedicated to it where you want to, make a couple drafts, go through it a few times, right? But I think not overcomplicating that just like standard communication flow, and kind of keeping it simple there, it has helped with that. But yeah, that's the paralysis by analysis, which makes it sound bad. That's probably the trade-off, right? Like I don't have the time to overthink it anymore. I'm
Yeah.
too busy overthinking 7 other things that I've already done that. On to the next, right? So
Yeah, bias to action too. Yeah.
yeah.
And this is a really great question to end on, because I think, when you're a lean team and you're scaling and you're using everything you can to be more efficient, really, if you're growing and the company's growing, eventually you're going to hopefully grow your team as well. So the final question is, how do you know when it's time to add to your team versus just working smarter? Maybe some telltale signs that time is coming. Casey, I'll start with you.
I'm gonna go back to hairline again. No, I'm just kidding. So I think, well, everyone has a breaking point. Hopefully you identify it before you hit your breaking point, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is gonna sound really cheesy, but like knowing yourself, right? When you start to feel those cracks or see those cracks, like something's not adding up completely, right? Whether it's, I mean, we just talked about, getting things out the door without being completely comfortable, right? Like that's something that you shouldn't have to do, right? If you want proper and the best communications that you could ever have, or the best content, right? Like you want to be able to have time, a human sounding board as opposed to, bouncing it off your AI friends or anything like that, right? So like there's a capacity element to it, which goes back to, right, company goals, like their initiatives, things like that, what your budget is, right? But I think the reality of it, once you get into a flow and people understand that there's, a need for that flow of communications. I mean, hard for me to say because again, multiple hats. So yeah, I need some help. But right, and specifically in the comms department, it's important to have that other human element, I'd say. Just again, as a sounding board, real life sounding board. So
Yeah.
yeah, when you start to crack would be a good start.
And when you have any type of analytics and you've been showing value, and you can show like, here's the value and here's all the work that goes with that value. And here's,
Yep.
Rebecca, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, mine is just building off of what you said, Kara. I mean, definitely like, your well-being and your mental, physical, emotional sanity, all of that is super important. And knowing when you need to raise your hand and be like, it's too much.
Yeah.
As communicators, one of my old bosses used to say, like, we could juggle, knives and flaming fireballs all at the same time because we can keep a million different things in the air. But also it's like seeing where you're making that impact and then also seeing the gap where you're not,
Mhm.
and then making the case on how bringing in an additional team member can help you close that gap and then ultimately impact the business. So it always has to drive back up to what the business goals are, not even your comps goals, but the business goals.
100%, because you'll probably start to feel it
Yeah.
Yeah.
early on. And when you're feeling it, I doubt you're going to be able to, leadership's going to be like, yes, hire someone. They're
Right.
going to disagree with you first. So I think it's all about value and proving that everything that you're doing is looping back to those business outcomes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, those are our questions. I don't see any more coming in. So we are just a couple minutes over time, but feel like we had a great conversation. That's just indication that we had a good conversation today, and we hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you to our panelists once again. Thank you to our attendees. The recording will be available after this, and we'll make sure that I don't know if that's automatic or not, but we'll make sure everyone who has registered gets that recording. And if you have any questions, just reach out to Happeo and we will be happy to assist you. The QR code on the screen links to our website if you want to learn more about us. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. See you later.
Thanks,
Yes.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.